You gone through a quite painful situation really and recently, and it's really knocked you back, and you're like exhausted, and you're just like you don't know how you're gonna move up. Well, I've been there many times, and today what I really want to talk about is how you can use pain to work for you to create better quality life. And if you stay until the end, I've got an extra point for you then as well. Now, I've had times in my life where life was quite painful. And even 2022, there's a couple of examples. There's some really tough examples in 2019 in my life as well. For example, I lost a job and went into a really dark place. I was so worried about like my survival, all these kind of things. I was applying for jobs, not hearing back from most of them. Then I did get one in the end, but I know that's not always the case for some people. But in the gap, I was just in a really low place. Nothing as scary had happened to me like that before. And then there was also a couple of dating situations. And I had one which really went a bit messy, and we clashed. Great human being, and she was a great human being, but it was, yeah, just a clash of things, and it kind of, after that didn't work out, really put me in a dark place. And yeah, that got me really really down. So I was in pain. I was like, had lots of anxiety, a lot of regret, and I'd either go from this like real high level of anxiety to really exhausted. I was in a lot of pain. And I don't think I'm going to get to a point in life where everything's like amazing and wonderful all the time. Yeah, that's what I strive for, to feel the majority of the time. But of course, life events will come in. Now, what I realized in some of the moments in my life when I've been in a painful situation is actually reflecting on it in the last year. It really sparked a transformation when even though I wasn't consciously thinking about it, but when I used it. And then, funnily enough, I stumbled across some resources, listening to a couple of speakers and people I admire, and they funnily mentioned how you can use pain to really leverage it, leverage your lot, leverage a situation and push yourself into a better situation, into more of the ideal life you want. And it made a lot of sense to me because unconsciously I'd done it. And if you look at a lot of people, a lot of inspirational stories, people have been in like the lowest of the lows, and then they've risen to fame and things like that. And actually, what I'm going to share with you today is, I think, would resonate with these people as well. You see the stories of people who have gone through massive amounts of pain. Oprah Winfrey is one example. Amazingly like inspirational woman in my perception, but she had some horrific things in her life, and then she made a transformation. Tony Robbins, who I follow, he had a really troubling sort of like upbringing, right? And he had a bit of abuse towards him, and then he was like homeless, all these kind of things, and he couldn't stand it. One more moment, he made the transformation. So what I've learned in my own life is it can really spark your transformation. I wanted to talk about how you can use it in a way to support for you and a process around that. Now, before I dive into the points, I just want to really mention again that, well, I want to mention that if you've just gone through something horrific, right, and it's really hit you, maybe you've lost someone, something, you've gone through a situation, and you really need time to feel and grieve it, do that. I'm not saying you need to be like, right, I'm getting up and moving on kind of thing. I'm going to change my life, right? There is, as human beings, I believe there's a need for us to feel, right? But this is about when you're kind of in that mundane situation, something tough's happened recently or in the past, and you're kind of just going through life and surviving. So this is about how you can reignite the pain to use it. And again, like, for example, I've been in those cases when it's not worked out with someone. Like, I would just be like, I'm not going and starting dating like another girl like the next day, for example, or job, like sometimes practically you obviously have to go out there, but I needed a day or a bit of time to kind of process the job loss, right? So it's not about just going right, I'm going to spark transformation. It's about, if you're unhappy right now, you're miserable, and something, you've been through something painful and you really want to change, but you're just not feeling it. So I'm going to go through these steps, but ask yourself this: if you're in that place of just everything's dull, everything's mundane, and you've gone through a lot of pain, and then it just keeps playing in your head again and again, well, how's that serving you? Because although there's, like I said, a time to feel, for me, there's a time when I wanted to transform, and sometimes we're not driven enough. So I'm going to really talk about how we can use the pain to drive us. So number one tip is you have to absolutely hate your situation. Now, I want to be clear here. This is not hating yourself. That I would never say go out and hate yourself, right? Never. Because I'm the opposite. Absolutely love yourself, because you're going to be the best you for you and other people. I'm saying hate the situation because you know you're worth a lot more. That's what I'm saying, to be very clear. We're not talking, I would never on a podcast say hate yourself. I'm talking about hating the situation. I did hate myself before I did all this, and that's why I changed that was one of my transformations, was into like self-love. I was like, I can't stand this anymore. I'm miserable. I'm upset. And I'm just like, I got to change things, right? And that's part of the transformation. Why do you have to absolutely hate your situation? Because that's going to create movement. A really good example was an analogy of a dog. In this, the dog is sitting on like a pin, or I can't even think of the word now, like a needle. That's it, I think. And it's not like that painful, and the dog can't be bothered to move. It doesn't move, right? And then it gets really painful and the dog moves. Well, that's the same with humans, and this expert explained it in a really good way. When it's painful enough, they will move, right? They will be like, no more, right? So if you're in a situation you really don't like it, and you're just like, I need to change it, you don't hate it enough. You've not found the pain enough in it yet. And we can do that right now. That's what we're going to do. So like people, for example, maybe in a job they don't like for very long, and it's like, oh, I don't like this job, but you haven't felt the absolute hate of your situation yet. And again, like, I'm not saying don't be grateful for other things. We're talking about things you want to change. So I'm not a fan of saying I'm grateful for something I want to change. But there's many things to be grateful for. So you obviously can do gratitude as well. I'm a big fan. So this is about really finding that leverage, that pain to make something change. Because if you're not changing something and you don't like it, you haven't found enough pain to move yet. And that's what we're going to do. So the second thing is to find all the times in the past that being in a situation has caused a lot of pain. Maybe it's in a relationship and you're just unhappy, you know it's wrong, but like it's not painful enough to leave. Like there could be a very good human being, you're just not matches, they're not like abusing you or anything, but like, when people are getting abused, that they get to a point and then they leave. Well, not everyone, unfortunately, but you may just be like okay with each other, but you're just like roommates and it's not right. But in the past, think about, maybe there's some good points, but what we're going to look at is the painful points in the past. Like, when has it been really, really miserable, and really connecting with that, right? When have you been like the most miserable in the past, right? And how painful was that? The second thing, so really feel it, like think of, like write out as many things as you can, like in the past, how painful has it been, this current situation, whether it is a job, whether it is a relationship, whether it's a business, whether it's like a weight situation or health situation, right? The next step is the present, like how right now, how painful is it, right? Like right now, like what are you missing out on? What is it costing you right now? Like maybe it's money and it's like, I can't do that trip I really want to do because I've got no money. Maybe it's like, I can't go to the gym because I feel like too overweight, although that's obviously, there's a chicken and an egg situation there if you can't go to the gym, right? Or like maybe it's like, well, you don't love yourself and therefore you'd love to meet someone, but you just don't feel confident getting out there. Like, what's it costing you in the present, this pain? Write it down, right? And then the final one. This is really powerful. Wow, this is the fourth, before the final point, of course. So, future. What is this pain going to cost you in the future? Like, for example, imagine if you continue to like let this job be, and this job you hate continue to be your life, and then you go through another 10, 20, maybe 30 years of your life, and you're like stuck in this job, and you're like, you come to like retirement age, you're like, wow, I really wasted my life. Now I feel terrible. I regretted all the things I could do. And then you're feeling horrendous about your life. Imagine like you staying with the same person you're not really in love with, and or you don't really like. You know there's something wrong there. Instead of going out there and finding that happiness, right? Imagine if you come to many years of your life and you like realize how much love you could have missed out on, how much opportunity. Wow, how does that feel like? How painful is that? I'm creating pain here to get you to move, right? Or like health, you're not looking after your health, but there's not enough pain to actually do something about it. What if you like get sent to hospital? What if you aren't able to go to your like kid's wedding? What if you're not able to look after your kids because you're in the future, in a few years, you're just really, really ill from not looking after your health? Think about that pain, because what we're trying to do is get the pain, use the pain for you here, right? And then just when you've written down all those things, just go from one to the other and just combine that pain. Combine that pain. Now, what I found personally when I've done this is I get a little bit emotional. I get like a little bit sad, like, oh my God, it's painful. And then what happens is it converts to anger, but a good kind of anger. Not the anger like, I'm going to go and attack someone. No, we're not talking about that. The kind of anger that gives drive, like, I'm not settling for this. We're going to make a change right now. So really keep listing out those things, past, present, and future, what this painful situation or painful belief or whatever holding yourself back is doing to you, and then really feeling it, combining it all together. And what I'll say when you've done that is then like, what are you committed to doing as your next step? Do you need to tell someone you're going to join a gym? Do you need to tell someone that you're going to start looking for jobs next week? Or do you need to have a conversation with the person you're dating or whatever, right? So what are you committed to as the next step? I've got my final point for you that I wanted to mention as well. And it's this. Complementary to this is really thinking about what's the pleasure. And the pleasure is often the opposite. It's like, what would be the opposite of this? Like, you hate this job, but the opposite is you're in a dream job. You hate your relationship. The opposite is you find the woman or person of your dreams, right? So start listing that out and imagine how that feels. And then what I found really helpful is to go from the pain and the pleasure and keep rotating between the two for a little bit to really spark up that carrot and the stick, as the analogy goes. So you're being driven by the pleasure, like, oh my God, I'm going to get this. But if you don't do any of these things or take action, you're going to experience this amount of pain. Combining those two together can be super, super powerful. So that's what I got for you today. I really wanted to talk about how can you use pain for you. Now, of course, like if you're hurting right now, you've gone through a really traumatic or hard situation where you need to grieve, do that, like I say, of course. But what we're talking about today is when you're stuck in a like situation where it's just mundane, life is tough, a little bit dull, using the pain for you rather than against you. So I appreciate you for being here, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.